Welcome back. This is the third and final entry into the series of homemade tools, Southeast Asia edition. If you want to check out the other couple of videos that I've done on this, or some of my old homemade tool videos, I'll put the links down below. But other than that, let's get started. So starting off with the stands. I came across a lot of stands in this job, and there's two types of people in this world. The Rio thread clamp guy, makes up his own clamps, and the I'm just going to tack it still on anything kind of guy. If you can find yourself something that's got thread on it and any random thing to make a handle, whether it be railroad bar, another bolt, or uni strut, whatever you've got yourself a clamp and you're off in the stand making world. You can see here I've made a couple of stands for lifting up cable drums, nothing too heavy, but not everything has to be pretty to do a functional job. This is just scrap steel, blasted together, it'll hold, does the work. A lot of these stands go as far as to incorporate another extra set of nut and bolt or thread or whatever they're using, some sort of homemade clamp system for the earth of the welder itself. This is something I wouldn't necessarily do. I'd just clamp the clamp to the stand. They may be looking for a better connection. I'm not quite sure why they were doing this, but they took the time, so probably might have been a time saver. Who knows? I did notice it on most of the stands that had a spot for the earth to be clamped on permanently. The thing about stands and stuff like this, when you see someone making them, you're like, hey, what are you doing? Like, you know, you had a different job on or whatever. And then you realize, oh, it might take like an hour to whip one of these things up. And then over the course of the next 3 hours, they're going to save that amount of time anyway, because they're not working on the floor anymore. They're not struggling. They've got the workpiece there. And especially for stuff like pipe welding and stuff, you want it done well and you want it done right the first time. And you can't really do that on the floor. You need to run a bead the whole way around as quick as possible. You got the time it takes you to make these, you're going to save tenfold in the first few uses. So you might as well spend the time, no matter how good they look. If they're doing the justice and they're doing the job, they're a perfect tool. This is quite a common occurrence. Turnbuckle just welded to a bit of steel that used to be attached to something else. Quick and easy, permanent tension right up until the moment you cut it off. But to get stuff square and stuff temporarily, this is perfect and cheap. Well, cheap enough if you've got the turnbuckles hanging around, but a lot of them come with transporting, so you've got them, and they work well. This is another pry bar. As I was saying, I knew I had a lot of footage of these, but you know, it's right next to a few sharpened up. I think these guys are being used for drifts and podgies to land some steel, but I'm not quite sure. This is actually the beginning of a vine that'll wrap around this tree, grow really big, and chug it to death. They look really, really cool, but I didn't know that they were actually killing the trees. So every day when I was riding my motorbike, well, not every day, but every couple of days I'd see this family of monkeys cross the road. And every time I'd pull over and I'd try and film them, I just could never get any good shots. But today I saw them, slowed down, approached quietly, managed to get a little bit of footage of quite a lovely little monkey family. I mean, it's only shot on my iPhone, so I mean, if you want really, really good footage, you have to go to National Geographic or watch one of those shows. But it's pretty cool. You used to see these monkeys all the time, and it's cool to see them in their natural habitat and just living life, you know. The Maruka. This is my favourite vehicle I've come across in a very long time. It's crossed between a dump truck and a tank. Or I guess you could say it's more of a skid steer loader type setup, but I like to call it a tank because to me it looks like a tank. This thing's not built on steel tracks, it's actually built on rubber tracks, which makes it get around. It's still quite squeaky and loud, but nowhere near as bad as, say, like, you know, when you see an old unoiled loader just coming past, like, yeah, it's heaps better than that. Inside it's pretty simple in the cab, 2 levers, you're driving, you're off. It doesn't go as fast as you want, but it's a beast of a machine. It will pretty much go anywhere you've ever wanted to go. So these things are about 5 meters long, they're about 2.5 meters wide. They weigh 11,000 kilos. Its maximum load for hauling is about 7,000 kilos. They only go up to about 12k an hour, but that's plenty when you're cruising around the site. Any faster than that and you're probably going to be quite reckless anyway. They actually make some of these in the US. I don't know where this one, I can't speak to where this one was made specifically, but they do create, like, manufacture these in the US. They use the rubber tracks because they're faster and they've got lower ground pressure. So if this Maruka was driving over a freshly laid conduit, there was only a couple, you know, 300-400 deep or something, it's got more of a chance to live and not crush what's underneath it than steel tracks go. And depending on where you get your conduit from these days that you're throwing in the ground, if it's not, yeah, you can end up with some problems. There's some pretty cool promo videos for it. I was looking it up when I was on site because I was like, what is this thing? What can it do? How steep can it travel and stuff? It can go up quite steep hills actually. I forgot to mention that. But whether it's just cruising around site doing a rubbish run or it's bringing you over the conduit that you've been waiting for a while, you know, to throw it in the ground and keep working, there was never a moment that seeing this thing come around the corner didn't put a smile on my doll. I know it seems weird because it's basically just a skid steer dump truck, like a little mini one, but it's sort of small, so it's kind of like a Tonka truck, but it's not. It's just cool. I want one. Maruka, if you want to sponsor me, send me a truck. I'll have no problem sitting at the lights next to someone in the hot rod and I'll just rev away as a skid steer and just brrr. And no different to anywhere else, the sun was blistering hot, so we were always quick to set up some shade. This is a burning pit. Burning pit. It's like a hot box, light a big fire underneath it. It gets hot and you can heat up the couplings and stuff for pipe and whatever, so it gets bigger, slip it over and she's on. I almost forgot about old Juice the beetle. He's a huge boy. Haven't got the little horn on him. I'm not quite sure exactly what type of beetle this is. I'm not a beetle expert, but he was a big fella. He was already dead when I found him, but I like to see him cruising around in real life. I'm pretty sure they're fairly slow. I've seen others similar, but he was a big old beetle. This is a Rio grid mesh lifter. Basically, this is just a grid mesh lifter made out of a bit of Rio. Looks simple. Lift it up, ergonomically hook it. You don't have to bend over or anything, and you pick it up and slide it out the way, and you're off. Simple, crude mixing attachment for the drill. We're using this to make up the bentonite for the earth rods. Works. This massive Triumphant Tree, it's a special kind of tree. It's one of the sap trees that they use. They light a fire down in the bottom of it here, and then all the sap bleeds out and they collect it, and they use the sap to make all sorts of different things, and it's a good way to make income. These trees are really impressive to look at. They just stand triumphant over, you know, they're one of the tallest things in the canopy of the jungle. This one's quite isolated from the jungle, but it is there. And one of the other cool things about them is they drop these little helicopter spinny things. Seeds. I guess they're seed pods. They're little helicopters, and as they fall, they spin, and yeah, they're really, really cool. Not only is this a homemade tool in the Sled thing, but this is a whole homemade work operating system procedure. You know, safe work procedure they've come up with. Old mate here, he dumps it, gets rid of it, slides it on back, doesn't have to do much lifting, drags it back. He has a bit of trouble with this system, but he's got himself a rope and a bucket sled, and he walks it over. Old mate fills it up with the shovel, little bit. I think it'll be easier just to walk the shovel over to the side, but it's a system and it's homemade, so props.
So it's not the dumbest idea.
It's not the greatest one
but
either.
The fact remains we gotta move these boxes.
And it's clear we're not gonna carry them.
This is a simple little light they used to use for cooking with, you know, just off the old little pan there. It's just a battery into a globe with a couple of bits of wire that have picked up the 18 volts. It reminds me of the first little circuits I made with little kits when I was a kid. It was cool. So the cleaning girls made me this doormat, and it wasn't until I was walking out of the wet mess that I noticed one of the doormats was made up of SpongeBob t-shirts. And these are actually handmade, hand-woven out of old scrap clothing. These doormats, you can actually see the way they're weaving it in, the different threads and the different fabrics that they've used. This one's pretty boring. This one's the one in my room. But the one gun they've got, you can see different brands and different things. So, reusing, pretty cool. Now the size of this, you'd think you'd be using a big ugga-dugga, not a couple little handles and doing it by hand. But all my heavy diesel mechanics and people like that out there know, and if you know, you know. But yeah, this is quick, easy, simple solution. No heat gun? No worries. It may look a little bit crude, but it gets the job done. I got no problems with it. And end result, there was no charring or anything. I'm not quite sure why they went with white. They went with the white chocolate instead of the black, but it's neat enough. End of the day, do the job. The back of this UPS reminded me of zip ties and bias pliers, just trudging around there in the snow, starting up old engines. Yeah. I've never seen such a pretty fire extinguisher before. All mine are matte red with some sort of, you know, stripe on them. This looks like it could sit on a hot rod. This big old tank's just floating around. This praying mantis is just sitting here. He's got no idea how close he was to me just dumping the handle on him and watching him fly off into oblivion. This is what you call fool's gold. I've seen this before. Lads picked this up, they're asking me about it, like, is this the gold? No, it looks like it. This has tripped many a fool before. If you're a proper geologist or you've actually found gold before, not that I am, you know the difference. I just know you're not going to find this sort of stuff just sitting around anyway. Nowhere to let me. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Fool's gold for people who haven't seen it before, but it's worth absolutely nothing. That's about it for the homemade tool section of this video. For the rest of the video, I'm just going to leave you with a collection of bogged footage if you can be bothered watching that. Other than that, don't forget I got stickers, and thanks for watching. Catch you later.